Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now at the end part, there is the one major topic remaining, that's called the error handling. So in the error handling, suppose like why you will need that try and except, okay? Because the syntax written is like try, then some Python code will be there, and then except the exception we will receive. And also not that single try and except block is only there. There is also two more block that is addition. One is else, as you guys already know, and one is finally. So we will talk about everything later. Now why we'll need that basic try and accept block? Suppose you are working with a project, one basic project where just simple compiling some course, and you will get into form into your machine learning machine reading code there, and you'll get one output, a simple basic project. Now it's common to you receive such kind of message, okay? So when you will get that message, as you are a developer or you are analyst, you will get that means get the idea of the exact value that the error is throws to you because of some discrepancy found or some missing found there. But it may not be considerable for all of the people, like in your domain expert, or say in your stakeholders, or maybe client side. So you have to create one particular messages for them, or maybe some useful for them to that guys can easily understand. So that time, and also sometimes some errors maybe it's not relevant regarding to the, so you can ignore those errors and ignore with some messages so people will understand. So that time we can use that the try and except block. Even most of the Python module that we are still using is already written inside the try and exception block. So like when you guys gives the error, say if you guys see, suppose like that, if I want to save one variable to another variable, but that variable is not defined, if we execute, then one error, the name error is thrown. So those kind of error is already written behind our Python module, so that you guys can understand that that thing is referred to some meaningful messages, like that name is not defined, maybe some variable should be defined before we could execute. So such kind of things we definitely get as a useful message, so we will understand. So in general, even if I give you one normal day scenario in the real life projects, then when you finish your entire project, then you have to do one more thing is you have to write all those codes, or maybe copy all those codes and write accordingly inside your try and accept. So whenever you, it's common to throw errors, it's really common. So the error messages should be relevant to you or maybe the other people. Even when you give your code to the production, then the production unit or the production people also had to wrote those code inside this try and except block, so that it had some meaningful values, the errors we receive. Okay, so for now, let's ignore the else and finally, those things we'll discuss later. For now, let's simply discuss the try and except block. Okay. Suppose let's like we did before in the last session, the file handling part. Suppose let's open one file, say as I am in the same directory where my Jupyter file is executing. If not, then you guys also goes through using the OS module. What I'm trying to say here is, say, this is one text file. Okay, now I am trying to open it, that text file, and that name is sample. Say, simple language, I mean simple file opening, you can simply write like, for our open function, and because the file path is the same, the text is same, sample.txt. As by default it taken the reading mode, so we are not have to explicitly mention that the reading mode. Okay. Simply opening the file sample. Now let's change the name to sample 1 to 3. Now that file is not exist. If we execute, we'll get one error, is file not found error. So now this is the kind of like no such file or directory. This is useful to you, relevant to you. Now you want to create one message, like it is useful for not only the technical, because non-technical people will not understand what is the error number. So just if you wrote a more linear message there, say we can write like using try. So try block will first trying to execute whatever you write inside that code, means that code. This is that code. If that goes throws an exception, it means the exception error. That's why the except plus comes through. Except is throws an exception, then we can write like print, say suppose this file does not exist. Now execute that, you will see that the after hitting the try, there is one exception it will throw because that file is not executed. So that's why the new message is print. Okay, this is the basic or the means build concept of our try and execute. Now the thing is, whenever you means do any kind of misreading or maybe some error or any kind of exception you will receive, it has some values. Like suppose here we will getting the file not founded. Okay, now if we want to try that, when we'll receive only that file not found error, then we will write like something that the file does not exist. Okay, maybe if we receive other kind of error, then some other message will be there. Okay, so you can also write multiple except clause. Say this is the same file. Now suppose uh, in the exception we will write what is the particular exception we will receiving here. This is the file not found error. So copy that exception, paste it. You do not have to memorize it because all each and everything, each and every error it already in your Python documentation. So if you go through the documentation, then the list of error, what kind of error is with me and for which cause it is there. So you don't do not have to memorize each and everything. So now we can purposely return that if only receive the file not found error, then we will get that messages like that the file does not exist. Okay. Execute sure, because they're getting the same file. Now suppose this is our file. Okay, this is great. This is our file. Now suppose this is correct. Okay. Now this should not throw any error because the file is already exists. So you will see that the file is not throwing any error. Now let's one garbage variable there. Okay. Say any variable equal to some garbage, says a garbage variable. Now you can see that that garbage variable, it does not hold any value. So as it is not defined in our each and single any position in our script. So that time when you try to execute that written code open file will do, there is no error, but this variable that will throw definitely one error. Let's execute. You will see, of course there is throws one error, but our particular which exception will be written, that written is not printed because it's not satisfied. We will receive the name error. Okay, so for that you can also write like another exception block there. Say except exception. Exception means uh, whatever error you will be receiving, it will catch through the exception. That's the purpose of writing the exception. Otherwise, you can write in a particular format error like file not found error, name error, type error, those kind of error. But for if you know, sometimes you will know which kind of error you will receive, you can simply write the exception. Okay, except the exception, it will catch each and every error in your code will be giving to it. Okay, so except exception and write one message like print, then something when execute. Now we'll see as it hit that exception, okay, it comes through here and it will print it easily. That something went wrong in the system. So whatever you will do, if you don't know which kind of exceptional error you will be receiving, you definitely to not purposely mention that the exception. Okay. You can simply write that exception block and it will catch each and everything. Okay. There is also another way to do, like sometimes we did not know which kind of error we will be receiving, but we had to print it out. There is also another way. Okay, so for that we'll simply catch that exception in a variable and we can print that variable. Okay, sometimes we do not want to print that the custom message, we want to print that which particular error we will be receiving, and we don't know about the which error we will be receiving. Whatever error it will be receiving, we will print. Okay, so for that we can catch that exception and we can simply print it out there. So that exact exception we will receive. Okay, so for that we will use one variable and then from that variable we can simply print it out. So here, as we written except exception print something wrong, somewhere we can write like except exception as e. So that variable, what it will do, it will catch which exception will be receiving through this end, that exception for that variable or for that error. Clear? Whatever error will be receiving, that error we will be catching through that variable. So using that variable, we can easily print which error we will be getting. If we say suppose comment it out and wrote like print e, execute, you will see that that name garbage variable is not defined. Whatever you will be receiving here, suppose this was our previous file, and you can see that the name error garbage variable was modified. Now that message we are not purposely mentioned that it will receive only name error, because that exception it will be catched through here exception, and we'll be using that variable e variable to print that message. You can see that the name message is not defined. Clear? So you will see that at many modules, if we go back, sometimes if we search some module already present in your system, if we install pandas or even the by default module is also be there. I'm not remember, but we go like user updater local programs Python. This is your Python program, Python directory in your system to install. Now here definitely you will receive those are the libraries. Some may comes within install like the PyCache, okay, JSON, some kind of, and some may have to install it. If we open one file, say suppose you will see that one written. We'll discuss that part also, that how we can raise one error, because if that value is satisfied, then we want to raise one error. So you can see those already written, that our error handling in our system. Okay, and those kind of things like for the class things we will again discuss in our class part. Okay, how the data part is there. And to find out that very simple try and exit block is written there. Okay, ignore it. I will if I find anything, then I will send you to your means group, or maybe I will discuss in your next day. But where most of the time the entire module it will be receiving in your system will be written inside your try and accept block. Okay, like that inside the try and accept block, and the exception will be received. So say even that file not found error we can also use as our means. We can also use the variable error variable. If we receive that a file not found error, okay, then as e and then print e. So suppose if the exception file not found error is hit, then which whatever the message it will be written that the error to, it will be written here. Say now suppose if we did again, say if equal to okay, then our sample123.txt that file is not there, execute. You will see that the exact file as the exact exception file not found, it's stated, and the message that is no such file is directory is printed out. That's how we do not have to like memorize each and every error it will be receiving. Can simply wrote that exception. One example I will show you to repeat, because sometimes it's good, or people will say that the most orthodox way to write that exception is the end of your exception. Suppose you have the multiple exceptions it will receiving, and you have to purposely mention such kind of messages. Say for a name error you wrote one messages, for type error you wrote one messages. Okay, and then whatever you will exception you will receive, for that you will write another messages. So when you particularly mention that exception, those things should be written earlier, like I wrote here file not found error, maybe name error. Okay, those things should be written earlier, and the last except block, if you already written as the multiple except block, then the last except block should catch all the rest exception we will be receiving, say that exception, and it will catch it through there. So the problem is if we wrote that block before this one, you may know that sometimes maybe whatever error you will be receiving, Okay, it may not catch that file, this file not found. Okay, maybe other kind of error you will receive first, and it gives or throws that error. So I had that example. I will clear you out in a bit. But for now, this is the basic functionalities or the basic disabilities of the try and accept block. Okay. So whenever we had to know that exact exception we will receive, or we had to explicitly wrote that message because of that exception, then you can simply wrote that exception and wrote that message. If we don't know that exception, we can simply use that exception block and using one variable and catch that message. Okay, clear until this?
Yes, sir.
It's simple. Now, because this is the main functionalities of the try and accept clause, there is nothing means huge logic or huge behind the logic. There is one more thing is called, as I showed you, that the else block. So else what we will do, if you hit the try block and try block successfully execute, there is no exception it will throw, then it will comes to the else block and it will executing. Say we wrote like try, then our same file .txt simple, and we can wrote our same exception except this was our previous code. Now after written those, we can write one else block. If means try block we will use when we know there is some kind of error may occur. Okay, we just want to test that procedure. In general, like suppose you are writing one code, and at that point you want to like test your entire block. Maybe you know that if it goes to error, maybe some error or some missing will be there, then you know some such kind of errors it will throw. That time you want to test that. So we definitely use those kind of code inside the try and exit. So I am really like in my example, I'm opening one file, that the sample file. I'm trying. If that file is not open, then what kind of error exception I will be receiving, and that receiving a part will be written there. But if that successfully clearly, then we can wrote that another code. Okay, the following one like else, and we can write like print if dot read that file, and so on, close that file. The things we already did. Now as that file is exist, so it will hit there, so it will execute, so there will be no exception it will receive. So definitely it comes to our else block, and in the else block it will do the rest whatever it will be execute. You will see that text file whatever the written in the sample.txt, right? Generate for with open. So the exact same file is written there. Okay. We are doing the exact same things using that try and execute. You we may also ask that if we write that code here, say print that part f dot read, say same exact same code, but if we write and remove here, remove the else. Definitely, if we execute, because try will it will try to execute each and everything first, whatever written there. So if you execute, definitely that file will open, that file will read, and it will close because there is no error in our code and it will automatically execute. Now, what's the advantage of written the else? The major thing in the else block is, suppose you will receive one exception in here, because in real life your code may not be like the simple one or two line. It will be like your 1,000 lines of code, okay, or maybe 10,000 lines of code, maybe 500 lines of code. That time, for which particular line or for which particular causes you will receive the exception, it will hardly have to go through each and every line and find it out there. So for that reason, it's good. Suppose you will receive one exception not because of that line, you will because of that line. Okay, so you only want to try to test only that means that line of code, and if that line of code is not through the exception, then you will return the rest part in your else block. Okay, it's a means general obvious. So the entire message or your code should be really clean when you try to execute. So not only for you but also for the other people, it will easy for them also understand. So this is the one good reason how we'll write the else block. Sorry. And to give any permits is, you can think like kind of testing you want to yeah, for that particular chunk, or maybe inside a chunk of code you want to test for that particular line. If it should gives not any exception, if will code runs truly, then you will wrote the rest of the chunk inside your else block, so code written will be much cleaner. So for that time, else block is used. And last one is the finally. Finally is people use like, uh, if I give you one example, suppose you are doing one database operation. Okay, you are opening one database kind of operation and opening in your Python script. So definitely you have to open that means database, and in the end, definitely you have to close that database. So there will be no error. So obviously after the else part, you will wrote that finally block. At the finally block, you will return that the database should be closed. Okay, or maybe some code that will automatically close the database. So whatever error, whatever exception, which kind of thing you will receive, in the end, automatically it will close. Say, suppose in that if I wrote the exception and the else block, say wrote finally and say print like terminated close the database, kind of. Or maybe suppose you write some kind of d, you see whatever file will be executed there, in the end that finally should be executed, and what is code will be written there, either it's a simple message or it's a simple kind of text, it will wrote. So finally is something like you had to do for each. One is by hook or crook, whatever code you will write or testing there, in the end you have to do some lines of code that should be executed, whether you should receive one exception or you should not receive one exception, but that part you had to execute. So that time we wrote that code inside our finally. Most of the time people will only use that try and except block, but those are the optional that the else and find it means those parts are there. Okay, I guess that part is clear. Then we'll talk about how to raise one exception. Suppose you wrote that file like just that simple. If we copy it, okay. Now in that file, if suppose some kind of operation is hit, okay, satisfied, and you want to raise if me because sometimes some errors or some exception you know that the exception is received and will raise one exception there. For now, say this is our code. Okay, hold it on. Now, like suppose if we wrote one manual exception, suppose if say f dot name, very simple, f dot name equal to system dot txt, then raise it. Okay. So what we will do if that value is satisfied because the file value is already sample and it will then raise that exception and it will come here. Let's execute. You will see that that value is satisfied. We'll raise one error and that error is we return that exception manually here. The print something will run. So that's why that message is printed. And finally, whatever it will be written as told you that should be terminated in the end. So as that exception is written means heated, even that file is satisfied, the file is satisfied, but we are purposely raising if some value is satisfied, then we are raising one exception. Okay, we will give you like one proper example, but that's how means that's the basic concept that how we can raise one exception. Okay, so that whatever things we will write. Okay, maybe sometimes we know that if some give you the example like suppose you are working with an huge CSV file, there are some missing values will be there. So one exception you will write that if we some if values got some missing values, then we use an exception that that value should be filled out or say maybe some text manipulation should be required. So that kind of time, if you want to raise one message for your developer and other people, you can simply create like that. Okay. Say, if we give you one example, suppose in a calculator, say create one function, okay, addition function, it will take one number, two number, and will give you the output. This is one number and return in one plus and we print addition. Say suppose 50 and 51, it will give you the summation values. Now that thing, if we write suppose if that person maybe some um, string values will be there, okay, and execute, there is some error, type error. Now you want to create like if that type error you will receive, you do not want to print that entire thing, you want to print like those things will be not be familiar to the non-technical people, then we'll return one good messages, okay, for them to understand. So wrote try, then try that file if it throws any error, or the exception, then exception print, say right, uh, for the type error we'll write like invalid number. Execute. Now you execute that. Sorry, not print, because it's returning none. That's why it's printed that none value. So if that value is good, so will be written as a value that invalid number. So we can manually wrote on exception for that other people, so that guys can easily understand. Okay, suppose maybe this is one type error we will be receiving. Okay, we don't know which kind of error we will be receiving. We can write like exception as e, then invalid something like, let's wrote what kind of error we will be receiving. I don't know. Now return that messages using that the if variable, it will catch that exception and it will print it out. Okay, suppose say if we manually create one except block, okay, except suppose the number is false because it's receiving a type error, so except type error, then return the number. Now you can see, because the type error is hidden and it satisfied here except in the exception, it will receive one type error. Okay, suppose say here for n2 we are written like 5, we are receiving one like the syntax error. You will wrote in the first block like one except, and that syntax error, because syntax error is the fatal error. We can write any code like fatal error, check your syntax, execute. uh, Suppose so, say int percentage. So you can write exception also for that in that file, but what I am trying to say is, if there is error in your parameter, okay, say suppose this is not n1, this is even to route one system is like except one is called type error. This is main common, and type error is will receive because of the parameter value, invalid parameter. That's I am trying to do. Okay, this is our invalid number, and if we receive one type error, then we'll receiving one invalid parameter. Okay. So let's try. Suppose we write, you will see it will came here. Okay, exception, and that uh, that exception is hit because it's a new kind of error. If you'll see which kind of error it will receive, say suppose that exception. Hmm. So it will came to one error that is mostly you will be receiving because of the closure property, because as you know inside the scope that variable is not defining, but we are taking that variable, so it did not have any meaning there because this is that variable required for inside that scope. So we'll receive for that one error, so it is not satisfied any kind of error here, and it will came down to this end and will hit that whatever exception it will receive and it will print it out. So that's why I told you that always in everywhere, suppose you know that particular that kind of exception you will receive and you will create those messages, but sometimes maybe you did not know about that exception, so you will definitely had to write one exception block where you will be receiving by through that parameter e, and you will receive that message, so it means you can write it out. Okay, so you can also do like, say, you can suppose you want to check, okay, you want to raise one exception, same for the same example, suppose if you want to check, like, this is our function, then suppose you will be checking if any kind of instance, say either it will not receiving proper integer value or floating point value, okay, decimal value, then definitely we want to raise one exception like uh, only that integer and the floating values are allowed. You have to type the only those values. Okay. So for that time, we can simply use that the if block to raise one exception. Say if we will write like is instance. Okay. If is instance n1 is integer, and or if so not the if is instance into with float, if that value is satisfied, then what it will, if any of them is true, then it will receive true. Let's put it in bracket, and same thing, but we will now write using that n2 block. Okay. So if in one in integer or in one receiving float, then it will receiving true value, or and that is true, and n2 is receiving at the integer and the float, then it will gives you true value, then only that block is executed. Okay. If that not it means that was executed, then we can write here return then n1 plus n2. We will successfully run that function. If that is not executed, then we want to write one except. So Let's tab it out and write try. Okay, try, then that value is executed, then returning that value. Else, or there is except that we want to raise that exception, so we do not have to route the exception. Else, raise, okay, our exception, that is only int and float values are, let's check, if that value is satisfied, then return, or else we'll raise one exception. Okay, and else if we receive other kind of error, then accept whatever exception we'll receive as e, and then return e. Okay, no error will receive. Now, so the same thing, print addition or suppose 50 and say kb. Now if we try to check that addition values, it will comes here, first value satisfied and it will receive true because it's an int value, 50 will satisfied. Further comes to the next instances and it will throws definitely one false, so definitely it will not execute that if block, because if false then it will not execute. It will comes to else block and it will raise that exception. Okay, and that exception will be printing here. Okay, let's print it out. You will see that that exception message is written and we will raising that exception and that value is printed here. So whenever you had to like manually uh, wrote that the exception message, you can simply raise that exception using that the raise function. Yeah, it's really majorly common when you try to do your work. Sometimes you have to plot your entire code to your production time in the cloud server. Then definitely you have to read entire code is inside that try and exit. Okay, so this is all about that the try and exit block. And next we'll try to cover it out that the JSON module that was represented in here Python. If you using Jupyter, then you did not have to download or maybe pip install those module. It's already there, you can import. Okay, I believe even some other code reader where basic module is already presented, that there also the JSON file is, you can easily import it. So I guess that try and accept part is clear.
Sir,
Hmm?
for one error, we can keep one variable. As you had mentioned, right?
Hmm.
For type error, one variable. And for
Yeah.
invalid and flatten error, we can keep one variable like.
No, because that exception will catch in whatever error it will be receiving. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hmm.
That only, sir. I understood.
Hmm.
But for one error like invalid number and all we are having, right? For one thing,
Yeah.
we can keep as one variable.
Yeah, that part I written because sometimes you know. Okay. Sometimes like you are kind of testing us, so you know that those error it will receive and you will know for that error you have to wrote that particular message. So that time you can write one exact message for that particular error, another one the exact message for that particular error, and so on. But sometimes if we not know or if you don't want to mention it, then you can simply write that exception as a simple one variable like or any other kind of.
When we'll get invalid parameters, sir.
Yeah, that part I had also had to do, because invalid parameter means these are parameter, na? So that parameter will be receiving from that variable. Okay, from that variable. That time it should be throws an invalid parameter, but
Mm.
that part I also had to means look.
Okay, sir.
It's not means I'm not coming it out for right now. But invalid parameter is something like I have done silly mistake. This should be name error. Okay, first. Until unless if only we are reading the type error, it will try that exception means hate that exception only the type error, na? So definitely we should write that name error. So it will try to find if there is one name error is there. Now if we try to execute, say yeah, yeah, you can see I done a very silly mistake. Okay, so
Yes.
when we'll be receiving that the name error means the parameter is we written invalid. So that's why it's written that the invalid parameter.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thanks to you also.
Sir,
Yeah,
is it possible to handle multiple types of exception from a same code?
yeah, obviously.
Suppose suppose I've got a 10 line of code,
Hmm,
and I purposefully write an exception on third line
hmm,
and a fifth line. So
hmm.
is it possible to handle those two?
Yeah, that's why I'm written, because for one single at a time you can purposely mention one exception. Okay, you cannot I mean conjugate multiple exception in that single line.
Because whenever I find an exception on third line, the rest of the code will not execute, right?
That's why I wrote that how you will means logically build your code on this. Okay, suppose this is your entire code. Okay, 10 line of 15 whatever it will be entire code. You want to test at which point that file will throw you an error. That point you can only written inside your try block. If we want that the rest of the code whatever if it's throw an error or not, you want that the rest of 5 lines should be executed, then you definitely wrote that 5 lines code inside your finally block. Okay, so definitely it will execute it. But if you want that the rest of the 5 lines should be executed, if there is no exception raised, then it's easy, you can simply wrote in using that else block.
No, I'm saying suppose I've got an exception on third line and fifth line,
Hmm.
and I write both of those line in try block.
No,
So
no,
what
no.
will happen?
If there is one error came, then it will simply throw the error.
Yes,
Okay,
that's what I'm
that's
saying. The
hmm.
rest of the line will
It not
not get
matter,
executed.
because as I told you where it was, you can see it executed. That file is executed. Okay, suppose say sample 1 2 3 number I will change and variable equal to say ABC. Execute. As it already throws an exception there, then the try block is directly goes through means goes the next to the exception block.
Yes.
Okay, so it will not execute it. That's why I
Yes.
told like whenever you will do
So is there is there no way to know that whether there is another exception or not?
other exception
Yes.
means I cannot understand.
And suppose I've got a name error and a type error.
Hmm.
So is there any way to handle those two?
Yeah, you can write two exception. Either you can write two exception, so you purposely know that I will receiving one exception is because of the type error, another exception because of the name error. Okay, but if you also want to write like if I am getting one exception not because of this, maybe some other reason, you can write another except block where you can catch that exact exception you will be receiving by using some variable, and you can print it out.
Sir, we can raise multiple errors.
Yeah, you can raise multiple errors. But for one single logic, like here, for one logic, you can raise one exception. Maybe some other reason you will raise raising one exception. You can definitely for that write the logic and raise the exception. Okay. For suppose this, if that's the condition is not satisfied, then we'll raising one exception. If not that means not, this is not the condition, suppose there is another condition, then with another if else block and we'll raise one exception. But the exception it will receiving for one particular matter is single one exception. It will raised and it will execute that exception, so it will receive in the end.
Understood.
So good way is always write inside your try and except block. Suppose you want to test some of that file, okay, and in your example, say 10 line of code, for that 5 line you want to test, and the rest 5 line, suppose you want to execute if and only if that of first 5 line of code it without throwing any exception. That time you can simply write that 5 part in your try block, you wrote your exception block, and the rest 5 of them you can write inside your else block. But if you want that whatever it will receive, it doesn't matter, the rest should be executed, you can write using the finally block. Okay. It's built means in the end it's up to you how you can build this logic. Okay, now suppose say import, let's create one JSON format, say people. So JSON format, it's basically came from the JavaScript oriented. So there is some rules. So first, I am writing this. How is the format is written? Okay, but in Python it is be taken as your dictionary format. Say people, and there is two people I will write. First is whose name. Now full email. That one the end, and has driving license, has license. This is one. And also we can write
Nested dictionary.
yeah nested dictionary. This is one kind of JSON format.
So what JSON actually is? I mean,
JSON is
what?
come from the JavaScript format. Okay.
Yeah, that I understand. But
I will say look,
what?
the JSON for, okay, I had the data. I will show you that. This will the exact how the JSON format look like. Okay, you will see it's called in your, if you JavaScript term or the Java term, it will call in your object, but here we'll be getting that file format in your as a dictionary, because it implicitly converted the data from that object to your dictionary. I will show to you. So this is basically JSON format. Okay, it's nothing but in your Python language, it will, you can see the file is written in as a dictionary format, and in JS it will be simply called as your object. Execute. Now let's create the data in JSON. Say data equal to JSON
It starts with
loads.
triple quotes.
No, triple quotes. Why? I will write, because in Python, as I told you, that multiple line string, how you will represent
Yeah, triple quote.
triple quotes. That's, you will see it complex because I had hard coded written one code there, because I want to show that which are the main functions it is. Then I will give you the one good example of it, like in the real life scenario, how you can create and use the JSON format. It's simple. If you already know, means what about the dictionary and the dictionary methods, then it will be really simple. So
Sir,
let's
near email you had written two, sir, near David. David 2 and
it's a dummy data, no? David 2 email.
okay.
Means it had
Which
two
one is
email ID.
okay.
Okay. I am basically trying to show is the means the data type. Like suppose this is dictionary, this is list, this is boolean. Okay, this is none.
Basically, you are taking the value as a list.
Hmm. So when we try to load the data, that is exact JSON data, at which format it will implicitly convert it. That I want to try. So let's load the data. Look, that JSON decoded us. Sometimes like line 13. Hmm. Now let's print. Now you can see one thing is here I am written false, but after I convert that, means import the data JSON data to Python it will do, it will convert it that value to our that false. You can see the F is capital, means our boolean value true and false. Okay, same goes for the null value, it will convert it to none. Okay, so that's I am trying to say that in Python, when we import that JSON format to our Python variable, it will implicitly convert it that from first, this is in JSON is called object data, this is called object format. Then it will completely convert it into the dictionary file. If you had the array, if we had the array of data, this is in JSON is called array, even in the other program language, but in Python it is simply called the list. Okay, how you can simply, we can simply type check that. Okay, even we can simply got that string in JSON is it's called the string format. We can simply called in our Python as your str. Okay, number either integer or the real value, it will simply convert it into integer or float. Okay, and the boolean value like true into capital T with true, and false like capital F with false, okay, and so on, like null into null. If we type check that, like now it will not written as a JSON. If you type check, because we already wrote the JSON format, you will simply see the dictionary. Okay. If you simply write like data in bracket, say people, you simply get that list, because for that dictionary key value, we will be receiving one entire list. You can see. Okay. For if we dig through more on it, data, then people. Suppose I have to go through here, then for the first is we cannot write like that. We can write like for some in data dot people. Okay. Now you can type check like read person and license. You can type check now. You can see it's an Boolean value. So that Python does when we're importing the JSON format, because it's according to our uses, it simply implicitly converted the data. So you will not get any error until the fatal error, like what I did while importing that one. You did one mistake. Until there is a fatal error, JSON automatically load that. Now you can now it's up to you what you want to do. Suppose you want to write that person names. Okay, simply copy, say you want to wrote that person, because it's in dictionary format, so you can write dictionary name and its keys. So, and it will printed it out. Okay. Suppose we want to delete whatever is written in our phone number. Okay, if you want to delete that, you can write like same thing, but here for except of print, we will write delete person and phone number. Okay. Now, as this is our after we deleting that file, we have to dump that to our JSON file. Means that things will be inserted. So we can using the catching one variable. Like suppose new is a JSON dot dump that string value. Okay, you can see I am reading load days. Okay, if I go to tab, there is also one value called load and load days. Load is simply when I am using basically the string value. Here is the string format. Okay, suppose if we import a proper JSON format, or maybe some raw format data from any website, or maybe some URL request, then that time we can use the load format. Okay, and for any string as a way receiving in the string format, that's why I'm reading written as a load string. Okay, it basically depends upon which format you will be receiving. So that's why here also, as I'm doing like that, you can see that there is one called dump and dumps. As I am using the string format, that's why I'm written dump is. But when we'll be simply dropping that other one, then we'll simply write dump. Okay, let's dump that file. What is called data. Now here, what another problem is, suppose if we write and print it out, say print new, you will see that it definitely dropped at the phone number, whatever we're writing. But the problem is for our loops, for our verifying, the indentation is not properly followed. So dumps also gives you some properties like which how many indentation you should give at the beginning. Okay, if you want to get the data in by sorting, or maybe if you sort, then which format you need, then those kind of functionalities already gives the dump format. If you check that function, you will see it has the many functionalities like indent, okay, sort keys, separators. We will do. Let's do one like give some indentation so our data should be look beautiful. Okay. Let's execute. 1 second, because I already dropped that phone number, so I had to need means the data. Let's copy. I'm not executing that file because if we do it already dropped one. So let's write one indentation. Suppose we want to give the indentation of 2, some gap, and in the end it's print. You will see that data looks in the much beautiful way rather than the previous one. Okay. Similarly, same thing, if we want to get that value in sorted ways, then write and gives sort keys. Sort keys is 0 to 2. Then based on the alphabetical order, it will be sorted. Correct. Now, if we load JSON file, I have one here in my directory. This is called this. This is our JSON file. Okay, you can see that perfect. And suppose if we want to do one operation and get that desired result into, like suppose this one. Let's do some kind of operation using the JSON format. Okay. Let's open that file. So we can open using our already know that file handling. Okay. So for that we can write like with open, then our file states.json. As a simple read mode we will be using. So as a, and then we'll be loading that the data in our json.load. We are not written that the loaded function because at that time we are properly opening that file rather than just using that the basic string file. So basically you can load that one, no error, receive it. Now say suppose write for whatever state will be there in data states, and print it out. State our name, and there state say some values like this one abbreviation. So these two values I want to print it out, execute. You will see that the entire state and the state code is written. So that's why as I'm loading the data, so I'm not using it purposely, means that load as file, maybe dumping some values. Similarly, as if I write like say print, this is our actual JSON data. You can see not only the state name but also like area codes and each and everything in there. Suppose I want to dump that area codes. The area codes I want to dump and I want to get one clear data like name and the abbreviation. So for that, you can simply using that same logic, but here rather than printing that one, we can simply delete that abbreviation. Say delete that area codes. So del delete of state in bracket or area codes. Yeah, so we will be deleting that file. Now that file we had to dump that. Now if you want to get one new file, like as I told you that we are not always use that the basic data file there, because data file only presented that some data that may be required for a future purposes. So definitely as the data will be opened as the reading mode, you can see we not mentioned it. So we cannot write here. We have to either open that file in your write mode or maybe one new file you can create. So it's always best way to practice, create one new file. So let's open with open say bracket. Say our new file will be suppose United States .txt or maybe JSON, because we'll be using the JSON format and the mode we can choose as a write as it, and we can dump that file using the JSON dot dump. We're not using the string, so we will not write the s, and our say suppose state name will be there because the data is already written, so we better write the data. Okay, so JSON the data indent is 2. Okay. Based on the indentation, we will be dumping the data. Execute. Because which file from we're reading writing there, we have to mention from that down file. So that's why the first will be gives our the which data will be reading and which file will be writing. That the area codes. Okay, maybe some file. Let me check. This is the fault. Fault is, let's write check if it's inside our print. This is states. Okay. Oh, I did a mistake. It's not mistake because I already delete that file. So I rerun that the same format. So the file is not there. That's why it gives us the error. So first load that one. Okay, load this one. Now, rather, if you print now, that the area codes will be there. Now, delete at the same time. Say state in bracket area codes. Now, if we do, I guess it should not be throwing an error, right? So, if we go check, uh, we check, you can see these are new values. Okay, with the same indentation, like the two space indentation, and it will be printed. So one thing is, suppose when you run that code, you should means be cautious, because if we already delete that file, previous file, then you can receive those kind of error, because you are already deleted that how that files even try to exit, because that file is not there anymore. So receiving, I was receiving that file, that's area code is not there. This is basic in general the real means reality of using that JSON file. Okay, if I exit means take one URL request, say from that URL, if you take that URL data here, uh, in Python there is some other topic like taking the URL request and all. If you guys interested, we'll discuss with you later. But for that now, there is some module called URL library, and from there we will be importing some module like URL request and URL open. Let's say first import our JSON file. Okay, then we'll be importing from URL lib dot, I guess the format is request import to URL. So now we will be with URL open file as say suppose response, because we get that response from URL. Now let's write source, our source file, from read that file response dot read. Let's execute. No error will receive. Now print that source. So this is our file. As you can see, many huge chunk of data which so many formatted one, but we did not have to get all those files. Now we can simply convert the data into the JSON format and we can work through it. Okay, because it's a JSON data. You will see the URL. You can see that the currency in the JSON format. So we only get, suppose we want to do like one currency name, one we need to create one dictionary where the currency name and in bracket the currency code and the currency symbol will be there. Okay, we can simply using that JSON format. Now clean that code. You can simply write like data equal to JSON dot load source and simply print our data. We get using that the JSON format. Now what we can also do it, if we suppose dump that other part, so suppose data dot dump be json dot dump is bracket is data, and let's give one indent equal to 2. We print that one. Now you can see that the code will be much cleaner. Okay, dump that other file, the main things is there. Now you can do is, this is our new data, you want to create one text running, say suppose write for currency in data and print currency name. So each and every name is printed. Now what I am trying to do is, I want to create one dictionary where keys should be there, means that currency should be as your keys, and according to that the values will be take as your currency code and say currency symbols. Okay. So let's create one dictionary current equal to take one empty dictionary. Now the currency name currency name, sketching that the currency, that currency suppose logo, suppose the currency symbol, repeat, and I'm creating three variable. Okay, so catching that three variable, one last one is code, currency code equal to. Now in our new dictionary, in the currency, we will be creating, as this is on the currency name, so this should be keys, so we can write like empty dictionary given the key name, this is our key name, using that variable we will be catching, so write that key name equal to, we'll be creating one list where the value will be logo, or maybe we can create a tuple also. So currency execute. Now print our dictionary. You can see better for I done. Only print the simple dictionary. Now you can see that's what I am to do. That currency will be there as a keys value, and the rest of it are slow one. So we'll get according result. Now if you want, you can write into a new file and save it there in the JSON format or any kind of format if you want. If you want the JSON format, it will automatically convert it like the dictionary to the object one and the list into the array one, because that's the Python 2 implicitly conversion with there. So you can see that's how we from that huge chunk of data we can simply clean it and get that extract deciding data there. Okay.
Sir,
Hmm.
uh, can we use dictionary comprehension here
Yes, you can use dictionary comprehension also.
instead of using dict?
Hmm. You can also dictionary comprehension. I'm writing using basic writing because it's easy for you guys to understand. If we do like step by step, okay, it will be like one line of code only if we write using dictionary comprehension. Okay.
Mhm.
I guess that's what you understand. It's not, I will say that huge important for you, but yeah, as not for, I will say, not only TS or analytical field, but also if you want to pursue Python in other field as automation or maybe cloud computing or maybe Bitcoin developer, okay, crypto developer, yeah, whatever things you want to do, that the basic part is almost completed ours. Okay, the rest of the thing uh, is our regular expression. Okay,
Sir, we have to use only in dictionary format, or we can use either in set also, like key and value pair. No?
and the key and value pair only you can use in is money using dictionary. Na? Set does not use key and value pair. I mean, yeah, if you don't want those as each and every value, this is dictionary. Inside it, this is nothing but a string. If
String.
you only retrieve that value, okay, it's nothing but a string. There is string format. Now suppose I am creating one list where one nested list where inside that list the three element will be like that value, this value, and this value. You can also create one list there. It's up to means it's always comes with a requirement that which requirement we have to proceed. Okay. So this is basically completed our almost file handling part. Some other major like the container, how to use container, those kind of things will come later, and those are the advanced part. If you guys are is interested, then we'll discuss you afterwards, like after finishing that oops concept, because the major and the important advanced concept is left is oops. Those part we'll be discussing in our next session. Okay. Now, let's try to finish the basic concept of regular expression, and it's really simple if you means understand it basically. Otherwise, people will usually really get confused those the basic regular expression. Okay.
Sir, what is meant by pass, sir?
Okay. So suppose if I give you one example, suppose I am creating one function. Okay, that's required for my project. Okay. Suppose a function I created, and for now I am not writing anything. Okay. Maybe in future I had to do something, but for now I already created. So for that time, if you just simply ignore that function here, it will gives you the error, obviously, because you are not ready. If you execute simply, the indentation error or any kind of error, even you can get the syntax error also. So for that part, if you want to just ignore that function, whatever is doing, just keep it written and you can proceed to your next one. You know, simply get pass one. So pass will ignore that error, ignore that function for now, and it will go proceed to the next one. So whatever you will do. So you will see no error you will be receiving. Okay.
We'll have
So
to break, continue, and pass. Ignore.
break will simply terminate your what will be the block you will using. Either it's a loop or it's an if else, okay, or it's a function. But it will simply break will simply nothing but it will
Stop.
complete terminate your entire the block. Okay, continue we will generally do using that loops. in general, when we have to ignore one step and proceed to the next one, suppose there will be 10 loops you are running. Okay. So in the iteration, you have to suppose in the fifth loop you are ignoring that value. So you can write the continue. So for that a particular movement it will ignore and the rest will proceed. Okay. And pass will nothing but completely entire. Suppose you will not return anything, or maybe some error you will be receiving regarding that function. So you can reading that to ignore that part, you can simply reading the pass statement. Okay. So clear na that part?
Sir,
Mhm. So now let's talk about the regular expression. So that's why I already written those things. So regular expression is nothing but it not only used in your Python, or it's also used in your any kind in your system, or in even in our general like the Sublime text or any kind of advanced note editor. It support all kind of regular expression to get and desire, like, or maybe search through each and every character we will be getting, including the space and the special one. If you want to search through, so suppose you are working with huge chunk of text, suppose big data you will be working, then you are not manually can find anything. Okay, maybe manually you can find a small word or maybe some chunk of words, but maybe you want to search through a pattern. Then by general you are not able to do it. So that time you definitely need to use regular expression. Okay. So regular, that's why the regular expression comes place. If you see means in the other programming language, that also they are also uh, definitely same technique, same concept will be there for the regular expression, because this is the logic built for the regular expression, and it supported each and every operating system, or better we say the note editor, or say your programming language, maybe database language, maybe server. Each and everywhere there the character will come and you have to search through it, you can simply use the regular expression. So that's why people always like confuse regarding that which written inside those brackets, what's the exact meaning of that notation, those kind of stuff. That's why I rated that basically snippet. So using that snippet, it will be really handy for you to understand. Say, if we take that a one, let's try to zoom it out. For our basic search, we search control F. If you use Sublime text, then you have to purposely enable your regular expression. This is doing using the altar or that logo. Maybe for your other editor like Notepad plus plus, or maybe Microsoft Visual Code, Code Editor, those things, maybe some other functionalities will be there too many. I use Sublime Text as it is really simple and really lightweight to use. So any kind of code editor support, you can enable that the regular expression. So you can search in the search box, like in the find in my search box, I can write to. And another is our case sensitive. You can also allow it. So like for the small letter and the capital letter, because there is other functionalities will be there in regular expression. That's why both those functionalities you can really open. If you want to use Sublime Text, you can simply download it. It's 10, 20 or 25 MB of file. And if we use Sublime Text for your programming or any kind of, like I use Sublime Text for my Python language, I use Sublime Text for my database also. So there is another tutorial we'll had. Ping me for that. I will give you the reference and how you can install and make installing easy, but how you can modify it. So you have to modify it like in that build section. in the build section, you can also create the new build system. So you can use each and everything. Right, for now I'm using Python. I can also change it into the database and all. Yeah, many or almost each and every kind of programming is supported. It's a simply go node editor. So let's comes to it. Like for our basic finding, suppose I want to find uh, a BC. You can see basic ABC is easily found. You can easily find through or sublime text or any kind of normal find. You don't have to use the regular expression. Okay. Now suppose I have to find one BCA. So now BCA is not finding because as for our normal system, it's definitely understand the order. So that's why it's not only find that exact character, it's also find that order, in which order if there is something BCA order is there is not, as there is no order is there. So you can see that there are no things will be highlighted here. Say, suppose if we want to do like R and S, so you can see that two file here and here, that two match, it's already find it. Okay. It is here. Regular expression is the regular expression. It's fine. Simple. Not the regular expression formula, it's simply the this one. Now here comes part here. Suppose if we write dot, if we write dot, so dot has a special functionalities. You can see those are the meta characters. Those meta characters had a special functionalities. Like in also Python, when we will be defining on variable, you know that we are not allowed to write any special character that those meta character. You can only allow one underscore. So these properties not only built for Python. These properties is based on the simple logic that any kind of system will do. Okay. So that's why we are learning through the Python, so we get the data idea. If you saw the Java, JavaScript, and the other programming language, in others, almost each and every modern programming language is supported. Yeah, those meta characters. So now for the dot, if we go back to our snippets, you can see the for dot, it shows that any character except the new line. So whatever character is written, it will be selected except the new line. Means this one, this one, those are the new line. Means this one. Let's get the dot. Find out. You can see all each and every single things are selected except the new one. Except the new one. Because dot is called the period character. Except the new line, it is created. Now suppose you want to find there, this is called backslash. Now if you want to find backslash, as backslash is our meta character, this is our meta character. Okay, but if you want to find that's the meta character, maybe sometimes written in your string. Okay, so if you find, you will see that no, nothing will be selected. So that time we know the one good functionalities of our backward slash is called our escape character. So it will ignore that property of the meta character for now, and it will simply treat it as your raw format or your raw string. So if we write another this one, then definitely it will ignore that backslash as its special property, and it will treat it as its own property. So it will find it there. If we want to find suppose dollar sign, you will see no file is selected. But if we ignore the special properties, you can simply write backspace and it sorry backslash, and it will ignore the special property. Okay, those are the things. Simple. I told you simple. Just you have to remember through it, or maybe some little bit operation will be some little operation is needed. Now suppose I want to search, say suppose I want to search that name. Some website I want to search. You know that if we write like MAINAK, okay, that first part is selected and it will search it. Now if we write the dot, it is simple like hard coded. Okay, hard codedness. My thing is like suppose it only selected that one URL. Suppose there is thousands of URL there. Okay. So in which logic it will be building. So that's why those part, the proper regular expression part came out. So you can see in the regular expression, those are the special terms, okay, that can represent some meanings. First dot, as I also told you, dot is nothing but your period character. It will select everything except line. Next come is your backslash d, backslash and small d. As I already stated, the case sensitive because it definitely holds some value. So backslash and the small d is nothing but selecting every digit. Let's see. We write backslash and d, find out, and this one also. You will see every single number is selected except other thing like new character, space, new line, and all. Okay. Now this is backslash small d for our digit. Now, easy way to remember is if backslash small d is representing the digit, then if we write backslash and capital D, it nothing but does the opposite. So it will select each and everything which is not digit. Okay. So you can see the number is not selected, but apart from it, blank space, new line, okay, meta characters, each and every single thing we consider except that the number that is 0 to 9. Okay. Now there is also one character is called word character. Okay, backslash w. Backslash w is nothing but selecting each and every thing except the new line, space, and our meta character. Okay, so you can see that number is selected, alphabets is selected, underscore is selected. Okay, but special character like this one like dash, okay, star, space, new line, those are not selected. You can see those are not highlighted because it's not represented. But similarly, if we do capital W, then it will definitely represent each and everything which is not a word character, means the meta characters or maybe new lines or maybe blank space. Okay, so you do not have to memorize. You can just when you will practice, you will get those reference through the Python documentation, or maybe I will send you those file to your group. So now the next is our backslash small s. Small s will always catch the empty white spaces will be there in your system, and if it does the capital S, it is does the reverse because which one is not an empty space. Okay. Maybe some character will be present. Okay, that part. Now next is your word boundary. Suppose if we do backslash b, so backslash b is because I am not written here. It will be this one. So let me write it properly. Backslash b. So word boundary is nothing but entire word from the starting end to the ending portion. It will be selected. Okay. But the empty like new line or the blank space is presented, or maybe the special character is presented, then those things will not be your considerably. Okay. And if we do the same thing using the capital B, then nothing but the reverse. Okay. Which one is not what boundary? Say backslash and capital B. You'll find, you will see each and everything is selected, which one is not what boundary. Those are the basic principalities. Now, other thing will be like some character is like caret symbol. Caret symbol is nothing but it will try to find if anything is written beginning of your string or beginning of anything. Okay, it will try to find if beginning of anything will starting with some values, then it will find it through. Okay, or maybe we'll give the example. Similarly, that's the caret symbol and the dollar symbol will try to find if which one is not beginning, means the end of the string. In this end of the string, it will try to find the which character is present or maybe which code is present, and using that parenthesis, the first bracket, we can group through it that which group of character we want to. Okay, or maybe for the third bracket or square bracket, we can do one bunch of characters that we want to find. Okay, sometimes. And for the or symbol, you already know this single line symbol. Those are the special value, and some quantifier is like for the meta character. I told you the meta character holds special values. Like if we retain the star, it will nothing but finding either there is zero or more than any values is present. Okay, zero or more. If the plus character will start try to find if there is one or more than one value is present. Okay, the question mark will try to find if either one value or the zero value is present. Okay, and inside this bracket we want to find that exact number. Like if exact the three number is present, three number of that character is present, then that time will be repeated. Okay, or maybe also we can give that range, like from that minimum to the maximum uh, range, if that value is already presented or not. Now gives you one small example. Okay. Suppose I want to select that phone number, okay, that presented here, that phone number. Okay. So for that phone number, we can write like we do not have to like 321 123 because that's only represent one single phone number. But if we write for entire phone number, we can write like for any number backslash d backslash d and then backslash d. Okay, so first three phone number we received, then separated by dash, we can write like dash. Now three again phone number will be received backslash d backslash d backslash d, then also separated by dash, dash will be rated, then again 4 digit. So you will see that only here one file, one kind of phone number is presented in that format. Okay, backslash d thread three times for the first time, then dash, then three times for the second time, then dash, then fourth time. It is represented for the one single time. Okay. Now sometimes the phone number may not be written in the dash format. It may be written, can be written also dot. Okay. So for the we can write like backslash d. Then we can, as I told you, we can give using the square bracket a bunch of characters we want to try to find. So in the square bracket, we want to find one is dash, that is satisfied, and another is dot. Again, similarly our backslash d, and now similarly either we want to find dash or we want to find dot. Okay. Then we will generate backslash d. Right. You will see the dash and dot will be selected. Even already saw here that when we will write one meta character, that is dot, okay, inside the square bracket, then the special property of that meta character for that time it will pause. Okay. It will not consider for that special character and will try to find out that exact character of the dot. Maybe sometimes if you not get that desired result, then definitely use one escape character. That is backward slash. Okay. Now this goes for only this goes two lines. Now you want to get another like the star symbol. So for that you can write that the star here and also write that one. Now the entire that three value is printed. It's up to you. Can you give this 1 minute? I am having a problem. Hmm. Yeah. So whatever thing you will write, just always build that logic behind it, so it will not gives you any error. Suppose you want to search any number that always start with 800, 8 means that number 800. So you can write like first start with 8, okay, then 100, then dash, then whatever it will be, okay, again dash, then whatever it will be. Suppose you want to get only those numbers which things will be starting from 800 or 900, not a problem. So the first character we want to find either 8 or 9, then next two will be 00, and then the number will be suppose either dot or dash, okay, then backslash d backslash d backslash d. So always build this logic like how you want to try to find. So always suppose whatever you will do, suppose if you want to get all those numbers to select it, then you can write like suppose. And one more thing is you can see that the we will be reading that the backslash d multiple times, three times. You can suppose some character will be repeated here. It may not be looks good here. So is desired to not write the repeated things at the time. You can simply use the quantifier. Okay. Suppose we will be receiving backslash d, say one or more. Okay, we written as a plus. So backslash d, and we get one more. Then the next number will be either dot or dash. Okay. So dot or dash will be selected. Then again our backslash d, and it will be getting either one time or many time. Then again we'll be getting as a dash or dot. Then we will get it backslash d. Sorry, plus. We will see all those values within the dash and the dot separated is selected. So which things you will be do? We should build means one proper logic behind it, so we will not any error. If you understand that which character it will represent, like the quantifiers, and according to you which exact value it will be represent, then from that you can easily create one base logic behind it and you can search through it. Hmm. So now suppose if you want to find a range of character, okay, suppose you want to find from any character in the alphabetical form, lower alphabet, say, suppose you want to give one range, say from A to Z. So it will select each and every alphabet which is lower order, means lower alphabet in that range A to Z. Suppose if you want to select only the English alphabet, so from A to Z, and you can also write from capital A to capital Z. Okay. So you can see all each and every English alphabet, it will be selected. So it's basically up to you that which character you want to try to find. Okay. Say if we want to try to find if beginning of it, suppose beginning of any word that starts with M. So beginning of it, beginning of it starts with M. So you will see only those line which is beginning of the character capital M, it will be selected. Suppose even if you want to catch any character, either it is beginning of uh, capital M or beginning of capital A, you can see that square bracket and capital A or capital M. You can see either this one or those line is highlighted. So suppose if we want to select those name, okay, say for selecting those name, okay, before doing that, the one more thing is I forgot. Which one is, suppose in that number, no? Suppose we are written that backslash d and we wrote there as a plus, so it will consider one and more. Suppose we want to purposely mention that how many character it tries to find. Okay, suppose it tries to find that the three character three number of its entire digit, so we can simply use that quantifier in bracket, we can write column 3 and it will tries to find whatever starts with any digit and goes to until 3 digit. Then again we can write the separated by our dot and the dash. Then again you can write like backslash d and then curly braces, and we want to find its 3. If you want to find it 4, then you can write like from the number of 3, sorry, from the number of 3 to 4. Okay. Then again we can give the separator and then also backslash d, and we have, suppose here is 3 and 4 digits presented, then it will be highlighted either 3 or 4, it will easily highlight. So as I told you, it's easy. If you whatever things you want tries to find, just build that easy logic based on those snippets. It will be easy to